Does it matter how we perceive ourselves and the world around us? Certainly, yes, because our perception is the driving force behind our reaction to things. It is our perception that makes us happy or unhappy. So, how can we harness our perception in positive ways? Well, students, this is what we are going to learn today from this wonderful play titled On the Face of It, written by a truly gifted writer, Suzanne Hill. Hello, dear students. This is Sushma Singh, and you are watching Booster Classes. I welcome you all with a very big heart. Students, I would recommend you to watch the video till the end heedfully so that you can be benefited. And yes, don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you have not done yet. Before moving on to the storyline, let me give you its overview first. Now, this short play titled On the Face of It is about the friendship between an old man, Mr. Lamb, who lost his limbs in a blast, and a young boy named Derry, who is acid attack victim. These two individuals meet unfortunate odds and they are victims of physical impairment. But it is not the actual pain or inconvenience caused by a physical impairment that troubles any disabled person, but the attitude of the people around the person with disabilities and the pain of loneliness which they suffer from due to the callousness and negligence of the society. And this behavior of the society towards the physically handicapped finds expression in this motivational play. The bond that unites both the main characters over here is their physical disability. But both have developed different attitude towards life while facing their odds. Now, through the contrast in the outlook of both these survivors, the author tries to create a tale of overcoming odds and seemingly difficulties or hardship and retaining hope and optimistic outlook. Hence, this play mostly consists of a conversation between them. In a way, the play depicts the heart-rending world of physically disabled people with their loneliness, aloofness, and alienation. Let's find out the essence of the conversation between them. The scene opens in Mr. Lamb's garden, and thinking that the garden was abandoned one, Derry climbed over the garden wall and get inside secretly even though the gate was opened. He had gone there to hide himself because he was afraid of facing people. Actually, he feared being teased by others for having a burnt face and thus wanted to be isolated and avoid people altogether. Derry had not expected anybody there, so he was startled when Mr. Lamb cautioned him not to step on the fallen apples. He thought that the house and the garden were empty, so without any negative intention entered in. He had entered there without permission. So Derry showed sign of fear and nervousness. Indeed, he was feeling very guilty when he met the old man, Mr. Lamb. He felt guilty and wished to get out of the garden. However, Mr. Lamb tried to comfort him by showing his trusting nature and tendency towards openness. Mr. Lamb welcomed him into the garden and told him not to leave the place just because of his presence. Mr. Lamb asked him not to fear anything and to sit with him and enjoy the nature. This was something Jerry was not accustomed to. He never considered that he might be willingly welcomed in by anybody. So Derry protested, saying that he was not afraid. Instead, people were afraid of him because of his scary burnt face. They were either afraid of him or sympathized with him because when they talked to him, people avoid looking at his disfigured face. They even passed cruel and insensitive comments on his ugly face. Derry was pained by the negative attitude of the people around him. Thus, he suffered from an inferiority complex. He felt depressed and isolated. He had no love for life and hated people around him. He had indeed developed bitterness and a negative outlook towards the world around him. Even with his family, Derry did not feel completely at ease because they were concerned about him and his future and tried to show just sympathy towards him. Let's now find out how Mr. Lamb attempts to console Derry. Mr. Lamb tried to infuse courage and confidence in Derry by removing his baseless fears and making him understand that disability should not stop one from enjoying vibrant possibilities of life. He advised him not to brood over limitations and also not to consider the difficulties in life as burdens. He said that beauty is just, it's only skin deep, and it is the goodness of an individual that matters, not the looks. It is not important how one appears physically. What is essential is the way one thinks, reacts, and how one is from inside, from within. Their conversation also led to revelation of Derry's depression and hatred about his being in such bitter condition, in such painful condition. And sensing that the situation had become a bit tensed, Mr. Lamb tried to change the topic of discussion. But Derry, a 14-year boy who suffered from a grave inferiority complex and negative attitude because in a horrifying accident, the acid ate up Derry's face. And this burnt face ate him up because his acid burnt ugly face, indeed a scary one, was disliked by one and all. This infliction had not only caused pain and suffering to his body, but also to his mind and soul. It had destroyed all his happiness in his life, and Jerry was therefore not comfortable in this world. When Terry asked Mr. Lamb if he was not interested in knowing about him, in order to win his confidence as well as to encourage Derry, Mr. Lamb said that his life's philosophy is to celebrate life in all its form. He respected individuality of each creation of God. Mr. Lamb said that a plant could be seen by anyone or by people as a weed, something negative and undesirable, or the same plant or the plant can be seen, can be taken as flowers, something positive and desirable. Because Mr. Lamb believed in positive outlook, so to him both flowers and beads were sign of life and sign of growth. He said that it is perception that goes wrong, not the realities. So he suggested Derry that he could not change the perception of the society, whether others will treat him like a flower or a weed, but he could change his own perception. Instead of feeling ashamed and angry and taking his disabilities as burden, he should understand that he, like all other people, is just a life and valuable in his own way. Mr. Lamb informed Derry that he had also gone through a difficult time in his life when he lost his leg in a bomb explosion. Kids even called him Lamey Lamb But this did not bother and trouble him because Mr. Lamb believed that sooner or later these reactions of people would fade away. He did not let his disability affect his life. Therefore, he asked Derry to face the harsh realities of life boldly and bravely. However, Derry was quite defiant and claimed that his deformity was graver than Mr. Lamb's disability because his burnt face could not be hidden from others, whereas Mr. Lamb could put on trousers to cover his thin leg. To this, Mr. Lamb advised him to think of the beautiful things in the world. He said that everything is related, and by referring to the story of the Beauty and the Beast, he actually wanted to suggest that individuals' perception matters after all. Some find one thing beautiful, the same thing others find it ugly. The one with the positive approach is always able to find beauty even in the ugliest of things. It is therefore very important to adopt a positive attitude towards everything in this world. But Derry interpreted the story differently, and he indeed lamented the fact that, unlike the beast, he would have to stay ugly all his life as none would kiss him. He felt that his mother kissed him, but on the other side of the face because she had to, or it was because of her over concern. Now, Mr. Lamb told him that he might have half face, but the world had a whole face to be looked at. Mr. Lamb said this in order to teach Derry that not everybody is blessed with everything. There is flaw in everybody's life, but the world is quite vast and it has so many interesting things to look at. Therefore, he urged Derry to shift his focus and attention onto better thoughts, such as all the things he wanted to see in the world. He reminded Derry of his own capabilities and encouraged him that he could still have a meaningful and purposeful life because he still had got his two arms, legs, eyes, and ears. After all, he had got his brain also that will make the difference. Derry was extremely, even after this, Derry was extremely cynical and was dubious about such sermonizing. He felt that it was very simple to preach. Only he knew the humiliation that he had to experience each day. So he was also angered by the useless remarks that people offered him as comfort or inspiration. He said that people often asked him to look at those who were in pain, but he was better off than the people who were blind, deaf, or on wheelchair. Derry did not want to be brave or find happiness only in comparing himself to others, even worse off. He just wanted to be treated like normal by people, by the society in this world. Derry calls Mr. Lamb peculiar because he finds Mr. Lamb to be saying the strangest things. For example, when Derry said that he had heard lots of things that were just as hurting, Mr. Lamb advised him not to believe everything that he heard. He should lend his ears only to positive things, and he should not waste away his life by pondering over other people's opinion about him. In this way, Mr. Lamb taught him to throw away his negative thoughts. To this, Derry replied that he found Mr. Lamb very peculiar because, unlike the other people who were horrified on looking at Derry, Mr. Lamb did not show any dislike or horror at Derry's face. Derry found it very strange that even though Mr. Lamb himself was handicapped, he lived very happily. And this puzzled Derry like anything. He started to feel more comfortable and he was drawn to Mr. Lamb because he continued to treat him with dignity and understanding. Moreover, Mr. Lamb treated him like his friend and made him aware of his strength and importance of positive outlook towards life. Mr. Lamb said that when people say bees buzz, for him bees sing because a sound can be treated as a music or noise and it depends on individual's perception. Despite physical deformity, he had a lively spirit and had learned to be content with his deformity and found meaning in life by keeping himself fruitfully occupied. Mr. Lamb tried to overcome the feelings of loneliness and disappointment in a number of ways. He used to spend his time sitting in the sun, reading books, plucking ripe apples and making jelly out of them. And all this he was able to do because he had a positive outlook towards life. Mr. Lamb removed Derry's of baseless fears and apprehensions and futility of keeping aloof by referring to a story in which a man who was scared of dangers from different quarters and who actually feared that a bus might run him over or a donkey might kick him to death or he might slip on a banana skin and so on. So he locked himself up in a room just in order to avoid getting killed. Eventually, he was unable to escape fate and died because a picture fell off the wall and killed him in his room. Through this story, Mr. Lamb wanted to show Derry that certain things are inevitable. What has to happen will surely happen, and one cannot shun society just because of some fear. Rather, one should face problems and hardships with positive approach and one should embrace the outside world as it is. Mr. Lamb said he lived in a house. He gave his own example, telling that he lived in a house with no curtains because he had nothing to hide from the world. He was an open man who welcomed everyone and everything. That is, he welcomed not only positive and pleasant things, but also negative and unpleasant ones. He liked both light and darkness. He had also kept his windows open so that he could experience nature and the world outside. Mr. Lamb always kept the gate of his garden open so that visitor could come in without any hindrance. Thus, he enjoyed life by enjoying the company of people, being in association with the people. This brief meeting left an indelible imprint on Derry's young mind. And for the first time in many years, Derry has stopped being negative about life. He had found a real sense of companionship with the old man. He knew that if he did not go back to Mr. Lamb today, he would become his old cynical self. Mr. Lamb's brief association indeed boosted his confidence and self-respect. He helped him to break free from the clutches of his own fears and apprehensions. Derry had learned to accept himself for the first time. Mr. Lamb made him comfortable by treating him with dignity and understanding him. He also made Derry realize that it was necessary to have a positive outlook towards life. He advised Derry not to pay attention to others' comments and to eliminate the negativity of life. He encouraged him to accept life in the most beautiful manner and made him understand the joy of living. Mr. Lamb's worldview and pearls of wisdom helped Derry to see life with a different perspective. He learned to overcome hardships and realized his potential. He became very optimistic and more confident now. He became strong and started believing that he could lead his life better even with his disfigured face, even with his disability. However, Derry's mother did not hold good opinion about Mr. Lamb. She had heard many things about the old man and considered him insane, harmful, and therefore being overly protective of her son. She stopped Derry to meet Mr. Lamb. But defying his mother's instructions, Derry went back to the garden not only to fulfill his promise, but also because he was moved by the old man's spirit and hoped he would change completely in his company. When Terry came back, he found Mr. Lamb fallen from the ladder while picking crab apples from the tree and lying dead on the ground. The demise of the old man, his only friend, shattered the spirit of Terry, and he cried out for him. It is ironical that when Terry got a new foothold to live happily, he found Mr. Lamb, his only friend, dead. Ultimately, Mr. Lamb's friendliness and non-judgmental acceptance win Derry over, and the two find a strong connection. Thus, Derry's chance meeting with Mr. Lamb proved to be meaningful and a turning point in his life. Coming to the theme of this wonderful and motivational play, we find that this play is primarily concerned with the issues of human connection and isolation. It illustrates how human beings long for better connection with others in all aspects of life because isolation can lead to greater pain. The play also conveys the key message that the callous and insensitive attitude of the society towards the physically disabled can be very demoralizing as well as traumatic. The society should accept them as they are, and disabled persons should be treated with dignity because emotional scars are deeper than physical scars. We should not hurt their self-esteem. Rather, we should help these differently abled people expand their social interactions and help them fight loneliness, depression, and disappointment. The play emphasizes on the fact that people should not be judged by their appearance. There is a lot more to them, and that we should have an approach that keeps us positive and optimistic towards life. Here we will talk about the aptness of the title. The title of the play, on the face of it, is quite appropriate as well as suggestive. This informal expression, on the face of it, is used when describing the way a situation or a person or a thing appears outwardly, that is, by surface appearance. However, at deeper level, be it a person or a thing or a situation, can be totally different. On the face of it, in this play, on the face of it, we find that Mr. Lamb seems to be a happy and satisfied person, even though he is handicapped. In reality, however, he is terribly lonely. Mr. Lamb yearns for human company and hides in him a deep sense of isolation. Even people have misconception of his character, but Mr. Lamb proves everyone wrong. He is a man full of wisdom and understanding. Similarly, Derry, who is defined as a boy suffering from inferiority complexes, proves to be a sensitive and sensible boy. So, we need to understand that appearances are often deceptive. Hence, the imperative need here is to view people and things closely by removing hatred and prejudices. This is what even the authors suggest us to do. And we find, thus we can say that the title on the face of it is a befitting one. Let's now talk about the character traits of two major characters of this play whom we are already introduced to. Mr. Lamb, the central character of the play, is an old, differently abled man, but a mature and experienced person. He is a great fighter and has come to terms with his disability because he takes it as a challenge and overcomes his loneliness by welcoming people into his garden. Mr. Lamb keeps high spirit and has positive outlook towards life. He enjoys life and loves people and their company because he believes that isolation and loneliness born out of hatred are more dangerous than acid. Derry is a young boy with a half-burnt face due to acid burns. He is apprehensive, withdrawn, and defiant in his attitude as he has faced a great deal of rejection early in life. He is full of insecurities, negativity, and complexes. He considers his disability as a burden and indulges in self-pity. I am extremely hopeful that you all must have got the in-depth explanation of this play. Students, these questions will surely help you to check your comprehension. So without fail, give an attempt to solve them and deepen your understanding. You can take help from the explanation which I have just given to you. Keep watching to get the detailed analysis of other chapters too. And yes, students, my dear students, I'm really looking forward to your valuable comments. Thank you for watching.